When thinking about Japan today, a lot of words come to mind: peace, serenity, order, respectful, modest. It's hard to think that Japan could be the complete opposite of any of those, right? Despite how highly regarded Japan is today, there was a time in history filled with nothing but chaos and conflict. So, how did that period end? What started after it? How did Japan get the civilized and orderly environment it has today? Well, the answer to those questions all lies in one of the most important parts of Japanese history, the Tokugawa Shogunate. But what exactly is it? The Tokugawa Shogunate, also known as the Edo period, is a period of time very well known for its long rule in Japan, ruling for over 250 years, 265 to be exact. Its rule started from 1603 and ended in 1868, making it the longest shogunate of Japanese history and all of history, since shoguns are a Japan exclusive thing. So, how exactly did the Tokugawa shogunate start? Well, as we all know, everything starts from something, except for the Tokugawa shogunate, which started off with pretty much nothing. No power, no peace, no government, no leader, nothing. You see, Japan's power was decentralized, which stirred up conflict and confusion. The lack of any power system made it very hard to decide who was going to be the next leader. To make matters worse, the daimyos, aka feudal lords of Japan, decided to fight with each other for almost a century, trying to take over Kyoto, the capital and center of power at the time. Basically, whoever got a hold of Kyoto gained the control of Japan, which made up almost the entirety of the Sengoku, or Warring States, period. This period didn't reach its end until the Battle of Sekigahara, in which Tokugawa Ieyasu, a shogun and daimyo, fought in against the Western army, who had over 80,000 men compared to Iyasu's 70,000. Despite the Western army's numbers surpassing their opponents, Ieyasu resulted victorious, giving him supremacy and control over Japan. Now, you may be thinking, so what? Anyone else could have done that. What makes him so important? Why is he so special? Well, inquisitive learner, he is the founder of the Tokugawa Shogunate, which, again, is one of the most important periods of time. After gaining control of Japan, he left the past behind, literally, as he switched the capital from Kyoto to his castle in Edo, aka modern day Tokyo. This was a simple yet powerful move that indicated a change to the system of Japan, specifically the governing system. In this newfound system of control, majority of the power was handed down to the shogun and bakufu, the shogun's officials. They then handed down minor powers to the remaining daimyos, giving them control over their respective provinces to really hone in on that wonderful control over their people and making sure they followed the social structure properly. The social structure of the Edo period was different from most empires. Instead of being organized by power, each social class was categorized based on their societal importance and how just what they provided. At the top of the system was the emperor, who actually had no power. He was simply a figurehead, while all the power went to the next class of the pyramid, the shogun and daimyo. As mentioned before, they had all the power in Japan, with the shogun having national authority and daimyo having control over provinces. Next were the samurai warriors, Japan's version of an army, and the sole protector and warriors. This group of highly respected fellows were meant to be loyal to Japan and followed a strict code of honor known as the Bushido Code. After them were the peasants and artisans, the largest class, yet one of the most looked down upon. Despite that, they managed to bring about a lot of the change that made the Edo period the golden age of the shogunates. At least they weren't all the way at the bottom of the pyramid, which can't be said for the merchants. They were valued so low in society, mainly because of the fact that they didn't actually achieve or do anything themselves and only profited off the work of others. Japan seemed to be very proud of this structure to the point that they made it very clearly defined. It was forbidden for anyone to change classes in any way, and differences between classes were very visible. Samurai, for example, wore their swords to signify their dominance, which was absolutely forbidden for the lower classes to do. With change comes greatness, and the Edo period managed to achieve just that in a variety of ways. First off, the government. Iyasu's goal was to create a centralized bureaucracy, and in order to do so, he'd have to make some more minor achievements along the way. He had to distribute land to avoid threats to the shogun and control fiefdoms efficiently. He restored unity and order by making the Bushido Code and applying strict social differentiation between social classes. As a result, Japan experienced a vast urbanization, gaining a population of around 1 million people, which also contributed to its economic growth as trade increased. They found new ways to farm with the little land they had, used coins, weights, and measures for payment, and started to grow cash crops, giving them a lot of money in turn. Speaking of money, it was spent to upgrade Japan's armories. The traditional Japanese swords were switched out for Portuguese firearms and cannons, giving them an extra barrier of protection in case anyone decided to attack. There were also more employment opportunities for women who found jobs in textile, entertainment, manufacturing, publishing, and so much more. Now that we know Ieyasu helped, what did his people do that was so important? They made art. Now that the economy was booming in success, there was more time and money that could be used to focus on creative endeavors and making beautiful masterpieces. One of the most popular pieces to come out of this period was Under the Wave of Kanagawa, more commonly known as the Great Wave. It was part of a set called 36 Views of Mount Fuji, all painted by an ukiyo-e painter and printmaker named Katsuhiko Hokusai. Unfortunately, Hokusai never had a defined or clear meaning behind his works, so people have had to look really deep to try and interpret it somehow. Many people believe that it's meant to represent an important and strong, yet uncertain change, represented by the wave, overtaking the strong Japanese empire, represented by Mount Fuji, which is considered to be the soul of Japan. With all these achievements, you'd expect they had a lot of resources or land to fulfill those. However, most of the land wasn't actually very useful and could have very much led it to collapse in its early years. Its mountainous terrain, despite providing some natural beauty and a form of a barrier, was very poor in mineral and useful resources, making the mountains themselves useless. They also took up a lot of land, leaving only approximately 15% that could be used for farming, thus why they needed new farming methods. This limited the amount of paid farmers and meant that farming couldn't be a primary food source, so people turned to the arbors. Thanks to Japan's many harbors, an interest in fishing developed and ended up becoming the main food source, causing many people to turn to the sea for a way to live and earn money. The sea also helped Japan overall, allowing Japan to completely isolate itself from the rest of the world and build itself, also known as sakoku. As the saying goes, all good things come to an end, and that's exactly what happened with the Tokugawa Shogunate. But how exactly did an empire that managed to stay alive for so long die so quickly and tragically? There's four reasons that led to this drastic fall. Number one, the tempo crises. The tempo crises was a series of crises that ended up defining the need for a change. People experienced a lack of trade opportunities as resources such as mines, rice, and silver started to lose value or decrease in number, leaving many people in debt. Number two, hierarchical shifts. As the years passed, more and more people started becoming discontent with the rigid policies, including the samurai, who hated that their social status was declining and how bad the economy was. In contrast, the policy to favor and benefit the merchants more than ever, which was pretty ironic. This led to much internal conflict filled with rebellions and uprisings. Number three, outside nations' influence. After over 250 years of isolation, Japan was invaded by the US, who pressured the shogunate to open the ports for foreign trade. The shogunate couldn't do anything against the powerful US army, exposing the weakness of the military and how technically backwards the empire was, which left the shogunate no choice but to sign unfair treaties that weakened their authority and legitimacy. This ties into the final reason, number four, internal social unrest. With the shogun failing to respond effectively and simply submit to the US's commands, caused the lower classes to question his leadership and start losing confidence. Instead, they aligned themselves with the emperor who, despite being powerless, ended up becoming a symbol of national unity and resistance against foreign intrusion. This affected the shogunate greatly as people started supporting the throne and using the phrase "sono joy" to embarrass the bakufu. This all led into the Meiji Restoration period, which marked the end of the rule of the 265-year-long empire in Japan.